with that point. Now, I find it useful to have a semantic, a verbal way of making this distinction between, what should we say, good Gnosticism and bad Gnosticism, to fall into a dualism, which for practical purposes is still useful. And but they're both Gnosticism, so we have to use the same word. But let's do it by capitalizing the Gnosticism as a point of view which included this negative evaluation of the world. But leave it with a small g when we're talking about the basic element in Gnosticism, namely this emphasis on saving knowledge. Yeah. I said, let's do it that way. I don't care how you do it. Why should you follow that? But that's the way I do it. And, okay. I said that's the way. So when I talk about Gnosticism, when I write it myself with a large G, it includes this heavily dualistic, pejorative view of the world. But when I'm talking about a point of view that emphasizes saving knowledge, I just use that's a Gnostic with a small g. By the way, on that saving knowledge, we're talking about a Western way to Asia. In Asia, that would be, I think I used the word, I said I was a jnana yogan, the way to God through knowledge. And that contrasts with the bhakti yoga, which is the way to God through love. It's only a provisional difference, as we know, because the further one goes, the jhanic finds himself loving what he knows, and the bhakti finds herself knowing what she loved. Sex is interposed. So it converges in the same, but along the way there is a difference of emphasis. So one could equally say that the Gnostic strand in Western religions is the jhanic strand. It is the jhana yoga of the West. If anybody doesn't understand, we throw around terms and vocabularies differ, so if I use any terms that you don't understand, well, just ask me to define them. Neil, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, actually there are four. These are the basic divisions between jhana and bhakti, but then there's karma, the way of work, and then there's raj, the way of psychophysical exercises. That would be the full panoply. All right. Let's go then, having identified what Gnosticism is, to do two other things. Namely, what were its basic tenets or beliefs or principles? And the other thing would be its major manifestations, as in Mani and Manichaeanism and so on and the like. But let's begin with what were if we were, beyond this definition, if we were to say what were its beliefs, basic beliefs. All right, and let me divide these into five, speaking about its theology, and then we'll go on to its cosmology, and then its anthropology, or view of the human self, and then we'll go on to its soteriology, or view of salvation, and fifthly, its morality, its ethics. Okay, very quickly, I think we can pull out dub in the basic beliefs. Okay. Now, on the theology, again, this God is very other than the world. Here is the dualism coming in. So a huge emphasis on transcendent, weak on immanence. Now, there is an element of because if you had an absolutely torn apart, then they'd never get together again and there'd be no hope. But a very sharp divide. God is the antithesis of the world, the opposite of the world. Now, so other than the world that he really doesn't get mixed up in it, and that means that creation is relegated to a subordinate creator. So the notion God created the heaven and the earth, no, it's too bad. He would never have done a thing like that. If it got done as some of his lordlings or something, that ultimately gets its power from God, but God is removed. The actual creation and governance of the world is in the hands of subordinate creatures, and they're known as archons, or rulers. We won't introduce many technical terms, but archons for those of you who have pencils going. And it means, as I say, simply rulers. And these archons themselves are children of darkness. You know, they